Hi everyone, I'm Vampy and we are almost ready to get started spinning. I could have done this much more quickly and just said, here, get your spinner, get this fibre, do this, and you would end up with yarn. However, you might not end up with yarn that you like, that's useful for the job you want it to do. You may not want to spin the fibre I tell you to buy, you might want to spin fluff from your own sheep or cotton you've grown yourself, or have some other reason for not wanting to spin with what I recommend. So instead of telling you a few simple steps to make basic beginner yarn, I've been trying to give you enough background that once you've started and you played around a little bit, you'll understand how the yarn works and you'll be able to adjust your technique to make the sort of yarn that you like. Before we actually start drafting, I promise it is coming soon, I'm going to quickly talk about ergonomics. You see in my videos I often have the eSpinner over here to the right and my hands here. When I'm not spinning on video, my hands will be nowhere near this close to the orifice. I'm leaning forward here to try and get everything in shot at the same time, whereas the most comfortable position for me is spinning in front or slightly to the right, but lean back, relaxed, shoulders relaxed, arms relaxed, hands relaxed, back slightly supported, a position I can sit comfortably in. Hunching forwards isn't comfortable for me, and it's not good for the yarn. If I do a little bit more twist in one section, a little bit less in the next section, if I've got a metre between me and the spinner, that'll all even itself out. If I'm right up here at the orifice, then those different areas of different twist are going to be on the bobbin, and they won't necessarily even themselves out while plying unless we've got a lot of distance. So in general, keep your spinner at arm's length, or even further if you want to use your foot pedal. Get a really nice gap between yourself and the orifice, and that allows twist to even itself out over any small drafting inconsistencies. eSpinner is much better than a traditional wheel from this respect because you can move it around far more easily. Wheel with treadles, you have to sit so you can have both feet or one foot if it's a single treadle on the treadles, and the orifice wherever that ends up, given where your feet are. Some wheels you can adjust a little bit left to right, up and down, but an eSpinner you can put literally anywhere. So this height is good for me, about level with my waist to chest, but you could have it lower. If you find higher ease, you can move it up. You can move it anywhere from left to right. I find different types of spinning, I will have it in different positions. For chain plying, I will work across my body, so I'll have it right off to one side of the table. But for my general, most of my drafting, straight ahead or a little bit off to the right works nicely. When I am spinning, you'll probably notice I hold my fibre in my left hand and draft with my right hand, so you'll see me like this. If that way works for you, fine. Do it the same way as me. If it doesn't, try swapping your hands over, using your left hand as your fibre supply, right hand as your fibre supply, sorry, drafting with your left. We've done a poll in the past of a couple of hundred UK spinners on this, and people tend to be split about 50-50 as to which way they prefer. It's nothing to do with being left or right-handed. Sometimes people just copied what they were taught. Others, they tried both ways and picked the one that was most comfortable for them, which is what I recommend you do. Do be aware that when you're starting off, your hands may get tired far more quickly than you expect. Well, there's little muscles that aren't used to doing these little precision jobs may end up getting fatigued, making mistakes, getting a bit shaky. So if after 10 minutes your spinning quality is going down, that's probably why. Take a break, do some stretches, come back to it. As a beginner, you don't really want to be doing more than about 20 minutes in one go anyway, as you need the breaks, you need the sleep for your brain to consolidate all those movements, and for you to then come back to it the next day, you'll find it slightly more intuitive. I've been going back to basics of my own spinning. I'm doing a beginner spinning course right back to the start, just using bits of fluff and sticks. And my challenge to myself is to use my hands the opposite way around to normal. So instinctively I would pick up my fibre here and do any twirling with a spindle here. I'm trying to make myself do it the other way. And It's surprising how tiring it is. I can sit at an eSpinner for hours and my hands don't get tired my normal way, but method I'm not used to, about 10 minutes of twisting a stick with my left hand, I can really feel it. So don't be discouraged. It takes a while to build up these muscles and the muscle memory to be able to spin. If you find something's painful and it's not because you're tired, it's just because of some other bodily limitation, stop doing it. Move your eSpinner, swap your hands, sit in a different position. eSpinners are great with their lack of treadles, as you can sit with your legs crossed, or your feet up, or your feet down, or one up, one down, and you can switch positions during spinning. I said before, my hands can cope with easily an hour of eSpinner spinning. That's true. My back, however, cannot, so I make sure I switch position, move my pillows around, support my back differently, and that lets me spin far longer on an eSpinner than I can on a treadle wheel. Right, ready to go. I'm going to start off with showing you a short forward draw, which is what most people in the West learn these days when they're learning how to spin. It's forwards because I'm drafting forwards from my fibre supply towards the eSpinner, and it's short because each draft is less than a staple length. Here my staple length I showed you for about 4 inches. During this draft I do not let any twist into the drafting zone. That's one of the characteristics of a short forward draw, is less than a staple length, no twist in the drafting zone. Now, you may have realised it's impossible to have twist in the drafting zone if to not have twist in the drafting zone, sorry, if you're going to be drafting more than a staple length, because without twist this will just fall off. So that we'll come back to later. With long draw, if you have twist in your drafting zone, you can then draft longer in one go. You may have seen the terms worsted and woolen thrown around in spinning. They are essentially the two ends of the yarn type continuum. One end is worsted. It's a very dense, smooth yarn with all the fibres aligned parallel, any excess air pushed out. To get that sort of yarn, you will be using the short forward draw from handcomb top, and you'll be squooshing the yarn backwards after it's been made. I'm not going to go to quite that extreme of worstedness with you. That sort of yarn's great for weaving, it's great for some knitting uses, but generally it's a little bit too dense, so I'm using commercially prepared fibre, which is got a mix of the short and the long fibres in it, so it's not quite suitable for worsted as handcomb top, and I will not be rolling my fingers back down after each draft. I'll be leaving it open a little bit more airy. So to get started, I will thread up my eSpinner like before. Now I'm going to be spinning my yarn small enough that I know it will easily fit through this orifice reducer here. If you're unsure if your yarn's going to fit through that, just take it off immediately. It's better than being all tangled up with your yarn and your fibre and it not going through there. Then I'll turn my speed down to 0, my direction to Z, and I'll need to play with the breakband tension a bit, but that's looking good so far, fairly loose. I've got my leader as I showed previously. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see. There we go. My leader here is a loop. I will take a piece of my fibre and put it through the loop. I'll just pull a short distance and wrap it over the loop. There we go. Now I'm joined on to my leader. What I'm going to be doing, once this is spinning, twist will get into the leader, and if you played with twist like I asked you to in my last videos, you'll know it's not going to want to go into this fat supply immediately. It's rather going to want to gather up in the leader, but as soon as I start drafting this out thinner, twist's going to jump to the thin areas. So I will be pinching with my fingers to keep the twist out of this bit of fibre supply here, and moving my hands forward. Each time I pinch, I will be pulling forward around half a staple length. I will show you what happens if you do too much, but we'll just get going. I'm pinching very, very close at the moment because I've got both ends of the same staple attached here. Once I get started, you'll see I can move my hands further apart. So I'm getting very slow speed. Alright, I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see. Just pinching, moving about a staple length forward and repeating. If I was doing a true worsted yarn, I wanted this to be even denser, I would pinch and then roll it between my fingers and just push out any excess air. But for the time being, I'm not going to be doing that. You can see I can do very small drafts. That works fine. I'm getting a fairly even yarn. But if I pull too much, I go slub and a small bit behind it. But too much, slub and a small bit behind. Because I pull out the fibres that start here and the fibres that start a bit lower down, and I end up with not enough fibre at the tip of my drafting zone here. Now this yarn is fairly fine. If I want this to be thicker, I need to pinch more fibres each time. So I'm pinching right at the tip here now. If I pinch further down, I'm incorporating more fibres into my pinch each time and getting a fatter yarn. Again, I'm still only drafting forwards about half a staple length at a time. Any more than that, I will end up with unnecessary lumps. And you can see here, I'm going to stop it. You can see here, as I've got thicker, it's not winding on as well, because thicker yarns, heavier, it's more weight for this to wind on. So if you're spinning thicker yarn, you may need to slightly up that tension. I'll pull back to get that lump out. You will also notice this yarn here has a steeper angle of twist than the initial yarn I started playing with, because the thin yarn can hold a lot more twist. If you look at the number of twists per inch, this is going to have way more twists in that sort of area than the finer, way less twists in that sort of area than the finer yarn to get the same angle of twist. I will back to Z and will slow down my spinner even more for fat yarn, and a bit more tension. Even more. There we go. Right, that's too much tension. Now you can see I got a problem here because I was messing about with the wheel. Got all my twists down here and it's locked into my fibre supply. Well, that's fine. If I try and draft that, I'm going to end up with well, if I try and draft from here, it's not going to go anywhere. If I try and draft from here, I'll end up with a huge slub, which I don't want. So I'll just roll that twist out. See it between thumb and forefinger. Roll it out and then I'll be able to draft. And all that excess twist is slowly being spread out over this singles, and it's not excess anymore. Okay. I tend to find that as I'm spinning, it's just comes automatically to me now. When I put my thumb and forefinger at this tip of the drafting triangle, I can feel whether it needs rolling one way or the other to let twist in or out of that area to get it to draft nicely. And after you've been spinning for a while, you'll be able to feel that too. For now, just watch where the twist stops and pull from there. If I want to draft from here, I can let some twist out and pull. If I want to draft from there, I can just do it straight away. You'll also notice I'm actually, I've talked about hands staple length apart. My staple length distance is from on a bit so you can see my backhand. My staple length distance is from there to there. So while I have this thumb and finger here, they're just supporting, they are not grabbing, well, this isn't grabbing hard, but this is supporting even less. These fibres can flow through my fingers as much as I want. I can move those fingers out of the way. It's more of a habit that they're there for support. My actual distance, the staple length that we talked about, is this here. If I try and pull there, then that's too close to my pinch with those fingers. So yeah, if it looks like I've got my fingers very close together and I'm still drafting, that's why these fingers are not holding at all tight. You really just want to practice doing this. You can practice making slubs by grabbing a large bit and pulling it out. Again, longer than the staple length. Or you can practice different speeds, or you can keep your spinner on the same speed and then go back and have a look at what that means to your angle of twist at different thicknesses. So I'll just keep doing this so you can watch me get to the end of this. So let's not get to the end. Let's pretend we had a bit of a disaster and I drafted too much and it broke. Not a problem. Avoiding joins is something people tend to do as beginners, but joins aren't difficult, I promise you. Bring your spinner here and look for the end. Now my end's quite easy to find because I have a nice low tension, so it's another reason to have your tension low, as well as it being good for your body not to be yanking back against the machine. Your end is less likely to get buried. If your end does end up a little bit buried, look where your hook is. This guide hook here, your end of your yarn has to be level with this guide hook. So that's a good starting point. I know it's about here. I can then, let's bury this a little bit so you can see. Right, that's lost. And then an old toothbrush. I knew it was level with this hook, and I know it's wrapped so it comes up and round that way. So I want to brush the bobbin this way to get the end up. You can also use sellotape. Masking tape's better. If you use sellotape, put it on your hand a couple of times first, otherwise you'll end up pulling up lots of the fluffy fibres. And there we go, that's my end that's been dragged up with the toothbrush. Now you can see here, compared to the yarn on the bobbin, this has got a very low angle of twist. I can pull it, maybe, probably, but it's probably best not to because it'll maybe break. So I want to add more twist in the direction it's already twisted in by rolling between my thumb and forefinger. I'll leave about a staple length at the end, don't touch that bit, but this bit here towards the bobbin, add lots of twist, and now I know that's really nice and strong. I can put that back around my hooks and grab my roughest hook and pull it through. And when I pull it through, I'm going to have to let go. A little bit of twist is going to come out, that's fine. I'll just have a look at it again. Yeah, put a little bit more in and put my eSpinner back. Now I like working, as I've said before, the big distance between my hands and the orifice. So even when I've got a break, I don't want to be joining right up here. I want all this extra yarn to absorb some of the twist I'm going to be putting into it before I do my join. I have this piece here. This is nice and light and fluffy and happy. I'll simply overlap this fluffy bit with my fibre supply, and as I draft, I'll start off by grabbing just a couple of these fibres here, and as I draft out, those will be merged with this and you won't even be able to see the join. I'm getting a few fibres, a few more fibres, and now I'm completely past that area. So that join was a fairly short one, but it was still about 2 or 3 staple lengths long. If you try and join over a very short distance, you'll find your join doesn't hold up. My join is exactly like the rest of my spinning, it's just lots of staple lengths overlapped with twist in them. I'll keep going to the end of this bit so you can just watch me. Maybe I'll try and slow it down and do it in slow motion. I'll pinch let the twist into that area, pinch, let the twist in, pinch, let the twist in. Again, you can see actually I drafted a little bit too far then, so I ended up with a thinner area. And again, I've got a thinner bit there. And as it's getting thinner, I'm going to need more twist to hold it together. So either turn the speed up or just sit here and wait for twist to build. If I get too excited by talking and wait for twist to build too much, it's going to end up getting locked here. I'll try and draft, and it's not going to want to go very easily. So roll out the twist, draft. I'm going to turn the speed up a bit. I'm not very good at doing it slowly. I'm not the most patient of people. So, and here you can see it's starting to peel off and want to draft down the side of my supply. Well, that's fine. I'll just manoeuvre it over to this tip here. We don't want it getting left behind. And there we go. Now, and I'm at the end of this bit now. So that's the end for short forward draw, worsted-ish singles. I will return with how to spin woolen singles. So I went over what a worsted yarn is. That is a yarn spun from a handcomb top, short forward draw with compression, and we made a yarn similar to that. We used a commercially prepared top and we didn't press out the air from the fibres as we spun. So we made a dense yarn with all the fibres parallel. That'll be quite smooth and strong, but it wasn't quite at the far end of the wool worsted spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum is yarns that are called woolen, which are spun English long draw from hand carded row legs, and they will result in a really light, airy, fluffy yarn with the fibres not travelling parallel. Instead, they will spiral around. Essentially spiral around a core of air from the row lag, and it's all mixed up short and long fibres, so your yarn will be much less dense, much more fluffy. Now we're not going to spin that sort of yarn here, but we're going to spin something that has similar characteristics. In general, there are very few people who spin true worsted and true woolen yarns all the time, so almost all yarns will be categorised as semi-woolen or semi-worsted, which isn't especially useful. So in general, you're better off saying, I spun this with this sort of draw from this sort of fibre prep, and that'll help people understand what you're talking about far more than semi-woolen could still be anywhere on the woolen side of the spectrum. But if you've got shorter fibre than I have here to play with, then doing that as a short forward draw, especially if it's very short like cotton, you just can't. Your fingers will be moving like millimetres apart at a time. It'll drive you mad. So instead you want to rely on one of the properties of twist that we saw earlier playing with yarn, is that it jumps to the thinnest areas. So we'll be drafting out a big lump, making a thin bit, the twist will jump over the lump to the thin area. As we attenuate and it all gets thinner, the twist will settle itself out. You probably already did this sort of spinning when you were playing with your yarn and you were doing things like this. This is a long draw. There is twist in my drafting zone. So for our short draw, we made sure we kept all the twist out. Here, drafting zone is the entire area between my two hands, so necessarily there's twist in there, and the twist's holding it together, and you can see twist wants to be loads in this little tight thin bit and not much in the fat bit. So we can either leave that or we can micromanage a bit, let the twist out, and evens itself out a little bit more. Now, if we had hand-carded row lag, the fibres would all be wrapped around in a log sort of shape. I'm assuming most of you don't have hand carders. If you do, there's other videos showing you how to spin a proper English long draw. I'm going to stick with this top that I'm assuming most of you can get hold of, and we'll be simulating a row lag to a certain extent by spinning from the side. This way, instead of having all the fibres parallel, the fibres will essentially be getting folded in half as they go in, and they'll be spiralling. All this air will get trapped in the yarn. So we have our speed down on 0, spinner out over there where you can see it. And the important thing with this sort of draft is that you have a fairly long leader portion. So this is about a foot between the orifice and my hand. Push that back even further because I need that distance, and I need you to be able to see my hands. Because as I said before, one of the reasons this is a long draw is I'm drawing longer than a staple length, so my arm is going to end up somewhere out of shot. I'm try and get as much of me in as possible. Okay, my direction is on Z. I'll start it fairly slowly, or maybe I won't start it at all. Is this not plugged in? Must have just been touching the wall there. So what I'm doing, I'm letting twist into this leader. Loads and loads of twist, more twist than I would possibly need in this area, because it's going to be spread out over my whole big long armful. I will let this get all twisted up, loads and loads and loads of twist. Then I'll overlap it on here. And as long as I keep tension on, this twist is going to jump to the untwisted bit. There we go. These fingers here are just supporting. And, oh, you can't see my hand. I'm going to have to move. Okay, hopefully there's enough space that you'll be able to see me move my arm out now. So I have my leader portion here. It's got quite a lot of twist already in it. And my fluffed up sideways top here. If I overlap them and let the twist out of the leader, it immediately jumps into this top area. I'll put a little bit more twist in. This is just so I can show you in slow motion. When you're actually doing this spinning, you will figure out a speed that you can keep that on while spinning. So I have loads of twist in here, more than I need. If I pinch that out of there a little bit, I can draft back while letting the twist in with this front hand. And that is essentially how you would do a long draw. Now this is no use for anyone. It's really loose and not enough twisted. So I will let enough twist into that, keep my eye on it until it looks good, then let it wind on. And here, let some twist build up in here and draft back against my front hand, and let the twist build. So I have it considerably slower than I would if I wasn't demonstrating, meaning I do need to wait longer for it to build. Again, let a little bit build in here, roll just enough twist out so I can actually start drafting, and let all that twist in. Now I've got a slub here. If I cared about that slub, as I showed you before, roll it out, let the twist back in. This sort of thing works with cotton really well. There's a video on the 6th page on the Dreaming Robots website of me doing cotton. It's exactly the same technique as I'm using here. Now I've had a break there again. Let loads of twist build up in this part, overlap, and it jumps from there to the fluffy parts. Now I'll show you what happens if I try and do this too quickly. So I've got my twist built up, pull it out, it comes undone. I caught it with this front hand. So you want to be drafting back at the same speed. The twist is entering your yarn just enough to hold it together. And then you have to wait for the excess twist to build. And if I do it too slowly, I loads of twist in there and draft back too slow. It just doesn't want to draft out. This all gets twist locked and not very well behaved. So this is when I would stop it and do as I demonstrated before. Roll the twist out so I can draft a little bit and let the twist even itself out across the yarn. Now, I suppose while we're here, I'll do a quick English long draw, which I did slip into a couple of times there. Those of you who already spin may have noticed. I will go and grab something which I do not actually classify as a rolag, but I will explain when I come back. Here we are back with rolag and not rolag. This is my rolag. It is bigger than it should be. I got a little bit enthusiastic and put too much fibre on. But you can see it's incredibly light and fluffy and airy. This is what is being sold a lot at the moment. Is I guess I'd call it a puny style rolag. It's made on a blending board and pulled off round a stick. So it is the opposite of this. It's not light, fluffy or airy at all. It does look beautiful when rolled up like this, and there's lots of them and they are very tempting to buy, but sometimes they're just a bit crap. The biggest seller in the UK, I've used some of her stuff and it's wonderful. It drafts really nicely. This, I'm not sure where it came from, but it doesn't draft anywhere near as nicely, and I could not have told by the picture why that is. If I try and draft this out, it locks up and it's just not as nice as a real light fluffy rolag. So if you've tried spinning these and had problems, don't despair. They're just very, very, very tightly rolled and don't draft as nicely as this cloud, which is perhaps the worst rolag I've ever made, but we'll ignore that and get on with spinning it. So for an English long draw, it's a two-stage process. You will pinch off a slub about that big-ish, depends how thick you want the yarn, attenuate it a little bit and then attenuate it more. So Americans will call this double drafting because you do one draft to pull out a slab and then draft again to make it smooth. It's a very similar process to what I was just doing before with working with twist in the drafting area and moving your arm back more than a staple length. And I did in fact slip into this because this is how I normally long draw. I don't normally American style. So let's show you how to do it. So again, I will use this portion here as a lead up. Get some twist into that, loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of twist into that, overlap it and let it grab on right. So I have my leader area with lots of twist in. I'm going to need a bit more speed for this. I will pinch off a slub, let twist in, and then I never draft any more from this bit. I'm locked here with this hand. All the rest of this twist is going into drafting this part. And my slub is way too big, so I can't get my arm back far enough to get as much twist as I want into this. So I'm going to wind this on again and try again with a smaller slub. Up my tension because that's a bit fat. Nope. Are we snagged or just misbehaving? We'll see. So that's a nice little leader portion. Got enough twist in there. Pinch off a more reasonable sized slab and that twist into it. I was still a little bit too much, but I've got a very thin part here. If I didn't want this thin part, which I don't, I can just overlap, draft a bit, and twist oil, hold that together. I need to up my take up to get that fully wound on. And build some twist in there. Pinch off a slob. Let twist build. Build up some twist. Pinch, so I've got something to pull back on. Pinch off a slab. Then that twist in with the front hand while pulling back with the back. And I've done a bit too much, so I can't get this slab out, but I can wrap that around my fingers to keep it under tension and pull some of that out. And again, that bit there, I couldn't quite draft back enough because my slab was too big. Fill that all up with twist. One more time, get loads of extra twist in this little leader portion. Pinch here, so I've got something to pull back on. Pinch off a slab, then open and close front fingers to let twist in while pulling back on it. I'll do it a bit quicker, as I'll probably make it easier. So let me twist build until I'm happy with it in this bit of singles. Let's twist build in this front bit. Pinch to pull back. There we go. Now your yarn, this method, certainly until your experience, it's not going to be as smooth and even as your worsted yarn, but it is going to be lighter and fluffier, and you'll get more yardage out of a given weight. So if that's the sort of yarn you want to spin, don't spend too long micromanaging every lump and bump. It'll give you yarn character, and some of your lumps and bumps will definitely be from the crack. This bit here is a net that I didn't get out of the fibre, so that's entirely my own fault. One last time, wait for twist to build, pinch to pull back against, pinch off a slab, and open and close my pinch to let the yarn, let twist in while drafting. And I will show you again what happens if you pinch off too much and end up with a slab where you don't want it and your arm at full extension. I'll turn down speed a bit to do that. And I'm still letting twist build, pinching there, accidentally pinching off far too much. So I'm still letting twist in, but I've got all sorts of slubs that I don't want, and I'm at maximum arm's length here, that I will figure of eight that round my hand like that, and then I can draft out these slubby parts as I get to them without worrying about going back too far. Okay, and once again, properly this time. Twist build, pinch off a lump, draft back against it. will say for ergonomics for this, I find it far more comfortable to have this slightly off to the side and draft straight across my body rather than twisting and having to move my arm behind me. Much better for my back and shoulders to keep my spine straight, facing forwards here, and my arms do the work across my body. Right, I'm nearly at the end of this bit, so I guess I'll finish this off and show you a join to this thing, which I do not like very much, but we'll see how well it drafts. Not enough twist builds. Yeah, and that there wasn't a proper English long draw, that was more of an American. Don't know if you could see my hand, but it wasn't a quick pinch and like twist into this area. I was drawing back as twist entered it. Which is fine, get very, very similar yarn, but if you want to be using terminology English long draw, then make sure you are doing it English style. Right, I'm joining this next one, so I'm just drafting that bit out, getting loads of twist in here. Now I can do it end on or I can do it crosswise, doesn't matter. When I place that on there and let the twist go into there, I will get a join. So, because I've already partly drafted this, let's get started with it. So, let me just build in here. Now, so I'm finding already this is not drafting quite as smoothly as the hand-carded row leg, but it does look still like quite a nice even yarn because it's not a badly washed fleece. Right, let some twist build. Pinch to pull back, pinch off a slob. Let twist in. Yeah, okay, maybe I'll take it back. This isn't as bad as the last one from this batch I spun. It's working alright. Get more speed. Let twist build. And mind on. Get some twist in here. Pinch to pull back against. Oop. I managed to catch that, so I don't have to stop. Let's get a twist in there. Twist build, pinch off a lump, attenuate that lump. Now what you'll notice here is that I'm very naughty. The entire time I've been spinning, I haven't moved my yarn guides at all, so I'm getting a massive lump built up here. I'm sure some people would find that incredibly annoying. I'm fine with it until the whole thing collapses, which then is really annoying. So remember, every time you stop, just check your yarn build up and move your guide over. And now it's going to start wrapping on here and make my bobbin look a lot neater and hold a lot more. So twist finish building there, build up some of my leader. This time I'm going to do it in a more American style. I'll be pulling back as twist enters rather than one lump in one go. And as twist enters, pull back, pull back, pull back. So you've had two options of different drafting methods you can use with different types of fibres or for different end results, which is sufficient to get you going as a beginner. There are lots of other drafting methods that will give you different results or that you need to use with different fibres, but for the time being, practice those two, and once you've got the hang of one or both, then I'll be doing an extra bit on this video of how to make your yarn more consistent, spinning with a project in mind. But don't worry about that to start off with, just worry about making something that vaguely resembles yarn and building up the muscle memory from day to day. Once you can make yarn, adjust its thickness kind of mostly a little bit when you want to, then you can move on to trying to get your yarn more even.